Most real estate agents have heard the phrase that the deals are made in the follow-ups. And while that might be true, most agents follow up all day long. They send out texts, they send out emails, they send out newsletters, all these different things, but they don't convert these leads into actual listings. And that's because you have been taught the wrong way. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact changes you need to make to have effective follow-ups, so that way you're only sending out follow-ups to prospects who are actually going to close deals. Because most agents think that more follow-ups are basically the solution, but it's not. It's actually the symptom, because most agents are taught that if they just follow up more, eventually the listing will come from that follow-up. But that's not a strategy. That's what we like to call a delayed rejection, okay? Because the real problem isn't your follow-up in the first place. It's the fact that you're filling your pipeline with people who are never going to sell in the first place, okay? Because you think that you're being patient, you think you're providing value, but you're actually just being avoided by these homeowners and these sellers in the area. And the more you chase unqualified leads, the more discouraged you're going to feel, the more resentful you're going to become about being a real estate agent, and the more confused you're going to become because you keep being told that you just need to follow up more, but you're not getting any listings from it. And when most agents waste months chasing dead leads, this is the reason why, because here's the pattern. You start talking to someone who is maybe mildly interested, have a little bit of interest in wanting to sell. You add them into your pipeline, you follow up every single week with a just checking in, or here's the market update, or whatever it is, and then they end up ghosting you, ignoring you, or overall just string you along in the conversation. And now you've got 20 of these conversations, or 50 of these conversations, or 100 of these conversations in your CRM, and you're telling yourself that you have a pipeline and you just need to work the pipeline and eventually you'll get some deals. But you literally do not have a pipeline. That's what I want you to understand. You just have a list of people who did not tell you the truth. Okay, write that down right now. Because follow-up doesn't fix a bad discovery call. It just literally extends the entire pain cycle. And I'm going to break down what that means, because you're not qualifying prospects. You're actually just hoping. Because the truth is that most agents are scared to ask the hard questions when they're talking to prospects early on in a discovery conversation, because they'd rather keep the lead alive than risking hearing a possible no or a possible rejection from that prospect. So instead of actually qualifying up front, they simply assume that they said maybe, so maybe I have a little bit of interest. They seem that they might be interested because they actually had a conversation with me, so there might be some level of interest, and they asked some pretty good questions about the market or about me being a real estate agent. So they obviously have some level of interest of wanting to sell, but the reality is someone won't answer questions about timing, about motivation on why they want to sell, or their overall goals on why they want to sell, they're not really a qualified lead. And that's what I want you to understand as an agent. Because a seller who avoids clarity is basically a seller who avoids commitment. And that's why they're ghosting. That's why they're not responding. So you need to stop following up, and you need to actually start filtering. And this is the big shift I want you to understand in your business right now. Because what if your follow-up wasn't about keeping up with every single lead and making sure they're warm, but instead it's about finding out who's actually worth following up with? So that way you save more of your time. And your time as a real estate agent is very, very important, because if you use it on wasted activities like following up with prospects who are never going to sell, you're going to burn yourself out. So there's a new standard I want you to actually implement in your business today, okay? You only follow up people who have a clear motivation to sell. So they're basically communicating to you. They have a very clear reason on why they want to sell. They have a rough idea on when they want to sell, or that's 2 months, 6 months. Even if they said it's 18 months away, they at least are making some level of commitment on when they potentially want to actually sell. They're not just saying, oh, I might want to sell in the future, right? We need timelines as an agent so we can actually understand how motivated they are. And you also want to make sure that they're open to having guidance or a conversation about the best route about selling. Because again, your whole job as an agent, when you actually get listings, is to provide value. A lot of agents forget that. They don't realize they're supposed to lead with value, and that's how you actually get the listing in return, because they understand your basically expertise in the market in the area and how you're going to help them with their pains and their problems. And one of the things I want you guys to understand is that people actually judge your intelligence not based on the accolades that you have, how many properties you sold in the last year. They judge it based on the quality of questions that you actually ask. Have you ever gone to the doctor's office, for example, right? And you're sitting there as a patient, your knees hurt, whatever it is, and the doctor's asking you very, very good specific questions about your pain, how it happened, where's the pain at, has it transferred to here? So you know in the back of your head, okay, this guy's qualified as shit. Like, he's asking me all the right questions about everything. I didn't even think about maybe this is what's actually causing it. Do I run on the weekends and I actually end up twisting my foot a little bit and that's what causes my knee to separate a little bit? Like, there's so many different things they're asking us, which makes us actually understand that they are an expert in their field. Same thing when it comes to here, because everybody else, what they just do is they just put people onto an email list. A simple email list just follows up with them, gives them market updates, and they move on. And I understand you want to automate part of your business, but some of it, if you actually want it to be valuable, has to actually come from you directly and actually providing real valuable, okay? Because you don't need to win every single conversation. That's one of the things that agents get wrong. You just need to stop wasting energy on the wrong conversations, okay? And here's a very simple fix on how you're actually going to fix this entire problem in your business immediately, okay? So step number one is I want you to change your qualifying questions, okay? So stop asking, would you consider selling the property if the right offer came along? Instead, start asking if you were to move, what's the driving decision on making you want to move, right? When would be the ideal time to make you want to move or sell your property? What concerns would you have about the process if you decide to sell in the future? These are actually going to start getting them to open up and getting better questions, which ultimately is going to get a better answer from the prospect. And the better answers you get from the prospect overall is a more qualified prospect. Because they might just sit there and tell you, hey, look, I have absolutely no interest in wanting to sell. Fantastic. Because now we know not to put them in our CRM, not to follow up with them, and not to waste time and energy on that conversation that otherwise we might would have been doing. Okay? And step number two is you want to add friction. So friction is great as a business owner, okay? Adding friction basically just means asking real questions, pressing for details, and pushing gently for clarity about a situation, okay? Because if they won't answer, they're not basically qualified. So you don't need to be chasing them anymore. Friction is very, very good. You want to make it as hard as possible for anybody who's not actually interested to have conversations with you. That's what adding friction means. It's not just like we're trying to make things complicated for the prospect and ask very, very tough questions. It's we're trying to weed out who's serious and who's not as fast as possible so we don't waste time and energy and possible money through marketing and things like that with prospects who don't actually want to sell, okay? Because the difference between a pipeline and a pipe dream is that a pipeline has active sellers in it, okay? It has real timelines. They actually know when they potentially want to sell, and they respect you and your time. Versus a pipe dream simply just has prospects who ghost you all the time. They have vague interests. They won't really tell you too much information. And you've convinced yourself that there's motivation and momentum in your actual pipeline when there really isn't, okay? Because the best agents don't chase. They actually just sort out and they filter the existing prospects that they have. And they know every maybe is basically just a delayed no. And they have the skills to find and weed out the ones who are actually ready to sell now or within the next 2 to 3 months, okay? Because I want you to understand that you are who you attract. Right? Like it's very, very simple. If I'm the type of person who goes out and ghosts people, doesn't follow up, gets vague answers, I'm probably also going to get those types of people into my pipeline, into my CRM, because I won't ask those hard questions because I don't like when people ask those hard questions to me. But that's actually what's separating your pipeline from being an amazing pipeline where you actually can follow up and actually get deals from it versus just a list of people who are in there who maybe want to sell or maybe don't want to sell. So if you make this simple change in your business, you'll get more deals. And if you want more help getting more listings every single month, I actually guarantee we help you get 2 to 5 every single month. Click the top of the link in the description. I'll be happy to help you.